Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Gaura Nitai Gaura Nitai Gaura Nitai. Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jaya Nityananda Ram. 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 Nityananda Ram. Nityananda Ram. Jaya Nityananda Ram. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Gyan Trimandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Sada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vancha Kalpratarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhe Evacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. So it's really nice. Thank you for Lingaraj Prabhu to inviting me and allowing me to speak on Lord Nityananda on this auspicious occasion of his appearance day. It's very, very nice for me. It's very good for my own purification. And thank you all for coming and for this short class. So I want to begin with a little bit about who Lord Nityananda is, and then mainly focus on his how merciful Lord Nityananda is, and how appropriate his mercy is for fallen people like us in Kali Yuga. So, so first of all, let's try to understand who is Lord Nityananda. Now, he is the original expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the spiritual world of Golok Vrindavan, Krishna first expands as Balaram. And then Balaram, he takes over all the functions of the spiritual world. It's amazing. When you begin reading about it from Srila Prabhupada's purports and books, we realize that how much Lord Nityananda pretty much takes over all the services in the spiritual world. For example, he expands himself as Golok Vrindavan. And he serves the Lord most intimately in all the 5 primary rasas. He also expands himself to become the Lord of Vaikuntha, Narayan. And then later on, he also expands himself as a 3 Purusha avatars to take care of the material creation. And we very well know what these 3 Purusha avatars are. The amazing, immense Mahavishnu, from whose pores all the universes are coming out. And then Lord Nityananda, Mahavishnu, who's none other than Lord Nityananda, expansion of the expansion of Lord Nityananda. He expands into Garbhodhyakshay Vishnu, who enters each universe. And from his navel comes Brahma, who's the chief architect, who creates all the species and the planets. And then again, Lord Nityananda expands further as Kshirodakshay Vishnu and enters the heart of every living entity. So in other words, he's taking care of the entire spiritual world and the material creation. And another expansion of Lord Nityananda is Anantashesha. And as Anantashesha, he's glorifying the Supreme Lord from his different mouths, millions of different mouths, he's glorifying. And there's never an end to that. And he's also holding up the universes. And they feel like mustard seeds for him on his back. So such is the power, the form of the Lord Nityananda. His supreme power. And we know in the story of Krishna book how he killed the demons effortlessly. What demons? Pralambasura, Dhenukasura. One time when Lord Balram got very angry with Bhima for attacking Duryodhana, he was so scared that he had to call to Krishna for help. And this same Lord Balaram, he's coming as the most wonderful, beautiful, and worshipable form of the Lord. That same Lord Balaram. And he is instead of killing like he did in the form of Balaram, instead of killing, what is he doing? He's begging them. He's begging them to accept love of God, love of Krishna. So Nityananda Prabhu, along with Haridas Thakur, they were asked by Lord Chaitanya to go door to door, and they would pray with folded hands. They were saying, Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Karo Krishna Shiksha. O men of faith, by the order of Lord Gauranga, O brothers, I beg this one request. Chant Krishna, serve Krishna, worship Krishna, learn about Krishna, chant the holy name of Krishna without offense. Krishna is our mother. Krishna is our father. Krishna is the treasure of our life. And when people would see that beauty of Lord Nityananda, they could not resist. They had to chant. So now Krishna, so we do understand, like Narottam Das Thakur said, Brajendra Nandan Jay Sachi Sutta Hoile Se Balaram Hoilo Nitai. That son of Nanda Maharaj, Lord Shri Krishna, appeared as Lord Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and Sri Balaramji appeared as Lord Nityananda. So there's a very nice, sweet story that I thought I would tell you regarding the fact that, which is revealed to Mother Sachi, the mother of Lord Gauranga, how Krishna, her son Gauranga is none other than Krishna, and Nityananda is Balaram. There one time now in her house she had these deities of Krishna and Balaram. So she was dreaming. She was sleeping at night, and she was dreaming how her son and Lord Nityananda, they were coming out of the puja room with Krishna and Balaram in their hands, the deity. Lord Chaitanya had Balaram, and Lord Nityananda had Krishna deity in hand. And they all were fighting, and they were saying, and the deities were saying that, hey, you put me back on the altar. Where are you taking me? all the offerings of Mother Sachi, the curd, the milk, everything belongs to me. And of course, Lord Nityananda was fighting back and saying, no, 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 your days are gone now. Now the days are for my master, Lord Gauranga, and he is the presiding deity here, and he is going to eat all the sweets. So in this way, they were fighting to the point that they were taking food from their own mouths and from each other's mouths and putting it in their own mouths. And at that time, Sachi Mata heard the voice of Lord Nityananda and said, Mata, I'm hungry, please give me food. And then her dream broke. And she was telling Vishambhar, Lord Gauranga, this dream, and she was quite very amazed. And of course, Lord Gauranga said, oh, don't worry. This just shows, Mata, that our deities are very powerful here. They are here, and they're eating all your offerings. So this is very, very nice. And he said, even the other day, when my beloved wife, Vishnu Priya, when she was making the offering, I noticed when I was taking off the offering off from the altar, that half the food was gone. And I think she may be eating it. And Vishnu Priya was next door listening, and she was smiling. And then, of course, Mother Sachi, she had invited Lord Nityananda to come as per her dream. And both of them were sitting and eating. And Mother Sachi, with a very loving hand, she was feeding both of them. And then she went inside to take more food, bring more food from the kitchen. And to her shock, what she saw was, instead of Lord Gauranga and Nityananda, there were 5-year-old Krishna and Balram sitting. Little Krishna with a peacock feather, with a flute tucked on the side, blackish, beautiful, and Balram, whitish, like a spring cloud, it says, with a plow. And they were sitting and eating. And when she saw and she realized that how they were none other than Krishna and Balram, she kind of fainted, and all the food fell down. And of course, the deities turned again into Lord Gauranga, and Lord Chaitanya, he got up, helped his mother get up, and just asked her what she had seen and everything, and he put everything back in order. So in this way, we can see that Lord Gauranga and Nityananda are none other than Krishna and Balram. And Sachi Mata, of course, was swooning in ecstasy. She had fainted, and she went to her room weeping. Just the whole revelation was a lot. It was very, very pleasing to her. So, in this way, and now the other thing to note about Lord Nityananda is that he is, even though he's not really an incarnation. He's Krishna. He's as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so in other words, just like we have Krishna has so many incarnations, and all of them don't have the full potency. They only have those potencies that are necessary for their incarnation. They don't have 100% potency of the original Krishna. But Lord Nityananda is not a partial incarnation, or he's not an incarnation. He has all the full potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the difference between him and Krishna, or Lord Chaitanya, is that he is called the Supreme Personality or Servitor Godhead, which means that even though he's none other than Godhead, yet he's always in the mood of serving. Like I just said, he takes over all the functions, everything. Now, as Ananta Shesha, he's also his bed. Krishna lies on Ananta Shesha, and he has a little parasol on top, like that, sheltering him. And he's the Midanga. We have the Balaram Midanga. It's not a brand name, but what it is Balaram himself is Midanga. He's the kartals. That's why you never put them on the floor, because that's Balaram, right? So he's taken over all the services. And this is very good for us, because we understand. We who are trying to be good servants, we understand, we learn from Lord Nityananda what it is to be a good servant. Because his mood, and the more he serves, the more joyful he becomes. The more joyful he becomes. And that's why he's known as Nityananda, always happy. So what it is Lord Chaitanya is Sevya Bhagavan, and he is the Sevika Bhagavan. This is very important to understand, and it's very, very interesting for us. And it's not a small thing, because he's such a powerful servant. He's such a unique servant. Okay, and then I want to talk mostly about Lord Nityananda's mercy. Not only is he serving the Lord in so many different ways, but he's serving in a way, he's also teaching us how to serve others. He's teaching us how to serve others. Now, what kind of service is Lord Nityananda rendering? Is that he doesn't see the qualifications of anyone. He doesn't see who we are, what family we come from, what is even a motive. What he's seeing is that we want to serve. That's all he's seeing. And there's a very nice story in this regard. There's a story about when Lord Nityananda, as you know, he grew up in Eka Chakra, and after he lived there for 12 years. And when he was 12, there's a sannyasi who came and who wanted Nityananda to go with him. And you know the story of how Hadaya Pandit, his father, was so heartbroken. And so he went with this sannyasi and traveled for 20 years, and he was in pilgrimage. And then he came to Navadvipa. So this is the story of those early times when he first came to Navadvipa. Lord Chaitanya was there. And then he did not meet actually Lord Chaitanya right away, because he was waiting for his master to begin the Sankirtan movement. So there's a story about this sannyasi, about a sannyasi who came. These were the early days when Lord Nityananda did meet up with Lord Chaitanya. They had a beautiful meeting at the house of Nandacharya. And at one time they were going somewhere, and the sannyasi came and he saw the beautiful form of Lord Chaitanya Nityananda, and he was so amazed. And he was very enlivened, and he told Lord Gauranga that actually I want to give you a blessing. And the blessing is that you have a very long life, a healthy life, a beautiful wife, and great scholarship. And when Lord Chaitanya heard that, of course, he was not a sannyasi at that time, but he says, "Why? What kind of blessing is that? It's actually a curse. Why are you giving me this blessing?" And the sannyasi, he got really upset. And he said, "Look, this is Kali Yuga. You try to give some blessings, and this is how people react." And Lord Nityananda, when he heard, he tried to pacify him and says, "Oh, this person, this brother of mine, he's very difficult. Only I can deal with him." And he said, and he was appreciating his benediction. And so, and so the sannyasi said, "Hey, this is an intelligent man. Why don't you all come? Please come to my house and take some prasad." And so they went. They followed the sannyasi behind, and they went. And they went in, and they agreed to take some fruits. And when they went in, the sannyasi's wife was there, and she said, "You brought some guests?" He says, "Yes, and they would like some fruits. Please serve them fruits." So she went inside, and she started cutting up fruits, and she brought. And he started entertaining them, this sannyasi. And he said, and he started, and then he told his wife, "Oh, go inside and bring some ananda." And the sannyasi's wife said, No, they are our guests." And Lord Chaitanya Nityananda asked, "What is ananda?" Yes, bring them ananda," he said. And then Lord Nityananda said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is that, "Oh, ananda means wine." And as soon as they heard, they both ran out of the door, jumped out, and went to the Ganga, and with their clothes on, they went and took a bath to purify their existence. Now, this is a very funny story, isn't it? Because how can this sannyasi, so-called sannyasi, you can, a fake sannyasi, a debauchee, how can he have a wife, right? So the question arises, why did they even, as soon as they saw the wife, why did they even bother to sit down and eat the fruits? That question arises. Why did they wait for them to be offered drinks? So the point that is made here, is that actually it's the mercy of Lord Nityananda. He doesn't take into account any qualifications of anyone, of any person, whether how fallen he is. All he takes is the intention. He wanted to offer a nice service, and he said, okay, we will offer. But when it got to beyond the limit, then they ran away. They showed that no, not everything will work out, right? So so in other words, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda's mercy is beyond any other incarnation of the Lord. They absolutely do not take, they do not kill demons. They simply offer pure love of God. And Lord Chaitanya, when Nityananda reciprocated in this way, Lord Chaitanya went along with it. So this is the mood of Lord Nityananda, the mood of appreciating service attitude and not really looking at the qualifications of the person, whether the person is pure, whether the person is impure. This is the spirit of Lord Nityananda. As you know, Lord Chaitanya instructed Nityananda to go and preach in Bengal, and Lord Nityananda was the original preacher in Bengal. Now, before we talk more about Lord Nityananda, I wanted to mention about Srila Prabhupada's mood of Lord Nityananda. Actually, Prabhupada said, everybody, any preacher in Krishna consciousness should have the mood of Lord Nityananda. They should take on the mood of Lord Nityananda. And because a preacher, he overlooks the lack of qualifications in a person. Otherwise, how do you preach? He's not measuring, is this person up to standard? Is this person actually behaving properly? Is the offering being made in the right quality? No, there is some offering. And Srila Prabhupada was in the same mood as Lord Nityananda. He overlooked. And when he saw some inclination, he would say, yeah, very nice, very nice. You come, get the blessings and mercy, come and serve. So, and Prabhupada, as you know, in the old age of 69, he went through 5 continents. And he was preaching to the most degraded people who were doing sinful activities. And he was so tolerant. Right? He was so tolerant, tolerating the offenses to him. He begged them all to simply chant, just like Lord Nityananda, worship Krishna, follow some devotional principles of Krishna consciousness. Why? He said, Krishna is a real true wealth and treasure. He is a life and soul. And in this way, Prabhupada, he converted tens and thousands and millions of Jagai and Madai. Lord Nityananda went to preach only in Bengal, and there was only one Jagai and Madai. But Prabhupada, he converted millions of Jagai and Madai into the devotees of the Lord. And we should be so grateful that today we are here due to Srila Prabhupada, because we are all in that category. We all have skeletons in the closet. Who can say that we are pure? Who can say that? And Prabhupada was so merciful that actually it is said there's a story where, one of his very intimate disciples was Dhananjaya, and he was Scottish, and he had a very good, he was very knowledgeable of the history of British history, and Prabhupada also. So they would sit and discuss and because they knew each other and knew so many things they had in common. And so there was a lot of intimacy. So one time, now Dhananjaya was a grahastha. So one time, Prabhupada told him that, well, you're a grahastha. Why don't you do some business? You give an order in Vrindavan for 50 sets of deities of Gaur Nitai. You export them to the West, and then you give these to the book distributors, and these book distributors can take these deities, and when somebody shows some interest, takes a book, and then these deities can be given. And what can you call them? Hare Krishna souvenir dolls. Now, that would be very shocking, because these deities would be going in the homes of meat eaters, right? What would ritualistic brahmanas say? That is Mahapap, right? How can you put deities in people's homes for eating meat? But Prabhupada said, no, it is okay. And he said, these will be called Hare Krishna souvenir dolls. And then he mentioned how, just like in so many countries, we have these dolls. When you travel as a tourist, so many countries have souvenir dolls, right? In Africa, you have African statues by the millions. In England, they have these guards with these funny face hats and things, right? So this is very normal. It's very natural to have souvenir dolls. And so you're going to, and then you tell them, he told him, you tell them that you take these dolls, you put them in a nice clean place. And if you can, just offer them some water and they'll bring you good luck. So this is the spirit of Lord Nityananda, and this is the spirit of Srila Prabhupada. Is to overlook all impurities and just see the positive and recognize the little service that someone's doing and encouraging people. Just a little service. And that little service is buying a book. So Prabhupada said he's eligible to begin his devotional service. And so one of his disciples asked, but Srila Prabhupada, what will they give to the deities? He said, that's trivial. They can offer a little water and everything will carry on. Now, this is the amazing mood of Sri Nityananda. It's wonderful. Why? Because this is the mood that can change the world. That can really reach out to the people in Kali Yuga, because we're not at all qualified. We're not at all qualified. We may not show it, but we know that we have so many anarthas, right? We should not judge people. Just like Lord Nityananda, he did not judge this sannyasi. We should try to see his eagerness or his tendency to want to serve. For example, we think like that, but we are very quick to judge, right? We encourage a person to become a devotee, but then we start judging him. Oh, this is where he came from. This is what his father did. This is what his grandfather did. This is what his whole country did. It's and we start judging. But Lord Nityananda's mercy goes beyond laws, beyond rules, beyond duties. He does not judge by externals. He's simply looking at who is willing to serve, who is willing to serve. So, actually, in a book, Krishna Samhita by Bhakti Thakur, he says that in the introduction of that book, he says that how actually most of the Vedas have been lost. No, a lot of people don't know about it, or they don't want to think about it, especially the smarter Brahmins. And actually, what he says is that nobody is really a Brahmana by birth. Everybody is a Shudra. Because as you know, one has to do certain samskaras to become a Brahman, right? So all these samskaras are lost. They're actually practically lost. So that is why we follow the Narad Pancharatra, which gives directions. And especially this one mantra that we chant kind of shows that. Now, I'm sure all of you know that already. Om Pavitra Pavitro Va Sarva Vastam Gato Apiva Yasmarat Pundariksham Sa Bhayab Yantara Suchi. So that means anybody who's not pure or who's pure or who's pure, apavitra, pavitro, anyone in all conditions of life, the goal can be achieved, which is Krishna, just by remembering the lotus-eyed Lord. One can be purified both internally and externally. And such a person can be initiated into a Brahman. So according to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the only true Brahmanas are those who have been initiated through this Narada Pancharatra. Now, this is very amazing. That means Prabhupada, the Brahmanas that he created, these are actually true Brahmanas. But of course, we know that the smarter Brahmins or the ritualistic Brahmins, they're not going to take this. So the idea is that, of course, that we encourage the devotees to do, when they first become devotee, to do spontaneous desire. They have a spontaneous desire to serve. And as they serve, then we introduce all the rules and regulations. For example, he's learning how to offer water. So he offers water, and then of course he learns how to offer tulsi in water and how the water should be pure. Just like Prabhupada would give the example that if you want to go to the sun, then you cannot go to the sun unless you're pure, unless you have a body of fire. Otherwise, you will be burnt very much, right? So in the same way, in order to go to Krishna, one has to become pure. And so these are ways by which we can become pure. So we have to become pure. It's not like we don't follow rules and regulations. Those are very important, but that should be given the spirit of service, the spirit of learning, of being spontaneously attracted should not be discouraged in the name of rituals. So in this way, because as you know, many people criticize Prabhupada for this reason, how he made the Westerners into Brahmanas. For example, another example I would like to give is about how the Vaishnav calendar. How when Prabhupada was here, he always followed the Vaishnav calendar from Mayapur. So which meant that everywhere they had Ekadashi on the same day. Now we have, through the computer, we've figured out how the tithi, where every place can have a different day. So sometimes you may be very close to a place like St. Louis, and we could have different days. So, sometimes it's fun, you go to one place and then you go to the next place, you can have two Radhashtami or something like that. But Prabhupada always followed one, and he said it was okay, right? It was okay. So in other words, I'm just trying to say, Prabhupada's mood was just so adaptive. It was so according to time, place, and circumstance. Initially, there was no Tulsi, and Prabhupada said, okay. And then finally, Tulsi was introduced. So the idea is that there's two tracks. So there's one track, which is basically based on rules and regulations, rooted in the Vedas, very ritualistic. And on the other hand, we have the mood of Lord Chaitanya Nityananda. So in other words, on the one hand, we have the mood of the smarter Brahmanas in Navadvip, who are hereditary Brahmanas, the caste Brahmanas, who are pushing their Brahmanical standards to the most refined detail with extreme strictness. On the other hand, we had the liberal mood of Lord Chaitanya, especially Lord Nityananda. And it is this mood that can embrace the world. And it is this mood that has embraced us all, by which we are here today. So, this is something I wanted to talk about, and I'm trying to see how much time we have. Oh, we have passed the time. Okay, so I think we should stop here and see if anybody has any questions or comments. Sorry, there's so much there to talk about Lord Nityananda. It's amazing how much we have here.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you, Mataji, for a wonderful class today. I have one question. I know all gods are worshipable only, right? Then why do we add worshipable Lord Nityananda? I mean, sometimes that that we add that word ahead of the name of the Lord. I believe all lords are worshipable, right? Of course, Ninda also worshipable, but then why do we specifically add it? Is there any specific reason like you want to explain?
You mean in terms of why do we add Lord, or why do we add
worshipable? The word
worship?
worship, right?
Oh, because it's not just for Lord Nityananda, all forms of the Lord, of the Supreme Lord is worshipable. So worshipable can be used for anybody. Lord Nityananda is very important to, as devotees, for us to worship him. There's a story in Chaitanya Charitamrita about Krishnadas Kaviraj's brother who denied Lord Nityananda's position, and of course Krishnadas Kaviraj scolded him, and he fell down. His brother fell down, and Kaviraj Goswami, he got a beautiful dream of Lord Nityananda, and he was so pleased with him, and he was Lord Nityananda. So that story really showed that how worship of Lord Nityananda is very, very important, even more than, alongside Lord Chaitanya. In other words, we shouldn't make the mistake of ignoring Lord Nityananda, you see, because we get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya from Nityananda.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you so much for explaining.
Okay. I hope I understood your question.
I was just wondering, sometimes I hear worshipable Lord.
Yes.
We do believe in Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and everybody is worshipable. So, like, maybe just to enhance the sweetness, or that.
That respect, just to enhance the respect that we need to give him. Because sometimes we forget. I think in Chowpatty, they celebrate Lord Nityananda's festival for 1 week, because actually he's the original spiritual master. All spiritual masters are representatives of Lord Nityananda, because he's showing the process of how to serve. You see, he's showing look at his mood. He's always serving, and he's always in Ananda. When Krishnadas Kaviraj saw his this dream that he came in, he's known as he looks like a drunken elephant. He's just so much immersed to love God. So we learn from him how to love Krishna. So yes.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much for the enlightenment.
Any other questions, anybody?
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Sri Guru Gauranga. Very nice to hear from you this most auspicious day, and very nectarian talk. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Gauranga. Thank you, Mataji. I agree with Sandhya Mataji. It's so nice to hear from you. It's very wonderful to hear. I learned so many things about Lord Nityananda that I didn't know before. One question that's coming to me, and which I sometimes personally struggle with, is at the end you talked about these 2 tracks that one should follow the regulations, but at the same time understand the time, place, and circumstance, be adaptive and be liberal. But for me, I feel like when we are beginning, in our neophyte stage, we should be a little strict with ourselves and following rules and regulations to follow things properly. So, if you can, just help me understand, like, where we want to follow, be a little strict, but not too liberal, because what happens then in, just saying that this is the best I can do, sometimes we can become complacent. Not we, I should say myself. I sometimes find myself becoming complacent that, okay, this is the best I can do. So what is the right way to understand these two tracks? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand a little better.
Yeah, this is a good question, Mathaji, and I understand. So just like I was thinking of example like Jayananda Prabhu, who's Prabhupada gave him the title of sainthood, and he's taken his pictures taken in every Rath Yatra, and he of course left his body, as you know, and he was engaging everybody off the street when he was building Rath Yatra carts, and did not look at the qualification of who he was and engaging him. So that's what I meant, is that the mood of Lord Chaitanya Nityananda is to simply engage, not to look at the qualification, oh, he should not do this because he's a meat eater or something. And then gradually, as he becomes purified, then introduce all the rules and regulations. For you at this stage, obviously you are a seasoned devotee. Of course, you should follow, what the rules are. And anybody, who's got Brahman Diksha and who's on the altar has to follow everything, because ultimately Prabhupada introduced all this for our purification, and how Krishna being pure, and how he gave the example of the sun. We can't go to Krishna. We cannot go to Krishna without purity. So we have to. The neophytes are those that of course we are all neophytes, but are those that are that we approach off the street, who take time to really understand. Like for you, coming from India is easy, but there are a lot of Westerners who, for them, it's very different, and for them, Lord Nityananda's mood makes it possible for them to actually involve themselves eventually in temple life, and to become eventually very good devotees. So for yourself, you have to take it nicely, because and follow all the rules and regulations. And of course, we cannot be, we have to see what our level is and how much we can do. So, and do accordingly. Like we can't be too hard either. Otherwise, so we cannot be too easy, complacent either. We have to find a nice balance of what we can do and what we cannot do. And if you cannot do too much at home, then there's always temple seva, that also helps, because then from the temple seva, we are able to get trained nicely and see how we can do things nicely.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. So what I'm understanding is that for us, we should be, in one sense, little strict to follow the rules and regulation for our own purification, but at the same time, be liberal with others. Like, don't necessarily impose those rules and regulations on others. Initially, be liberal, and then slowly introduce them, as you said. Okay.
Yeah, if Prabhupada had not done that, how would the movement would have spread? I mean, there's no way. Prabhupada had to accommodate so many things, and allow so many things, permit so many things, and gradually he brought them to the level of real brahmanas, so that is the idea, and that is Lord Nityananda's mood. That initially we don't see people's qualifications. Otherwise, we would be like, one of those ritualistic people, who are more caring about the rituals, but forgetting the real essence of pleasing the Lord, of remembering the Lord, you know.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Mataji,
All
so
glories to Srila Prabhupada. I could not join in the beginning. I joined or more towards the end of your class. It's so happy to see you.
Oh, so nice to hear from you today.
Yeah, I loved it. What I heard the end of your class, the beauty of this movement. You know, it embraces the whole world, and with a kindness and a softness of heart, and not being judgmental of anybody in any walks of life. While as we practice, you know, and our own goals is to maintain a more of a state of purity by upholding those standards and all that, and yet never losing that softness of heart, you know, to be able to accept anyone, and whatever standards we have to uphold, that is for because of our own exposure to our literature, the guidance, and everything that is coming from our Guru Parampara. But, you know, it doesn't make us hard-hearted. It makes us more soft-hearted towards the entire world. And that is the beauty of this moment. You know, a person can be both. And you brought it out so beautifully. I heard only a little bit of towards the end of your class. It touched my heart immediately, because that's who we are. And thank you so much for such a thoughtful presentation.
Thank you, Mataji. So nicely you put everything together. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, I think it's time. Thank you all very much for allowing me to speak. So happy to be here. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.